So here I am in GameMaker, and let's just say I want to start a new level. So I've got my gameplay set up and I know what's happening, but I want to start a new level and I need an obstacle or two in my way. So basically, that way the player can interact and even the enemies can interact with that particular obstacle. So let's set this up first by drawing my sprite for my obstacle. So I'm going to go create, right click and go create, and I'm going to create a sprite, and this time I'm going to change the size of my sprite straight away, and I'm going to make it, let's just say 400 wide and just leave it at 64 high, and you'll get sort of a vague idea of the size you want. You could make your obstacles, for example, and draw all the obstacles for your entire game and draw a maze on the screen, and make it the full size of the screen. But in this case, I'm just going to do this and press apply. I'm now going to edit my image, and my image, I'm just going to use the line tool, and I'm going to make it hot pink, and using the line tool, probably that thick line there, and go a line down there like so. Try and keep it straight, but I'm just drawing it roughly, and I'm trying to use a trackpad, which is not as easy as a normal mouse. And I've just changed the color there. Let's just do that again. Cancel. Control Z. Now I should be able to draw it like so. That'll do. Not perfect. I could probably spend a bit more time, but in the space of this video, I just need to get it done. So I'm going to press tick. It's a good idea maybe to get it done, test it, and then refine it later if you've got time. It's much better to have a game that works and looks bad rather than an awesome looking game that doesn't work. Okay, so I've got a collision mask here. I'm going to tick on this box here, and I'm going to change this from rectangle to precise. And you don't want to do precise for everything because it will slow things down. Bullets, for example, you definitely don't want doing precise hit testing or object collisions with small tiny bullets that when there are thousands on the screen. But for one obstacle, that should be fine. That means that it's only going to hit test or collide when it's touching a pixel, not when it's not touching a pixel. If you leave it at rectangle, the whole thing, including all the space around it, will actually form that hit. So now that I've done that, I'm happy that I've done that. I need to name my sprite, and I'm going to call it SPR underscore barrier or obstacle. So I'll call it barrier 01 because I'm going to have lots of barriers in my game for sure. So that's done. I'm now going to click over here and you'll see that the barrier is there. I need to now create an object the same. So create an object, and the object is going to be called obj underscore barrier and 01. And I'm going to change the sprite to be the barrier sprite, and I'm going to tick the box that says solid. If you don't do that, the barrier won't work. So now that I've got that there, let's go onto our room. I'm going to put my player, I'll get rid of that for a second. I'm going to put my player object onto the room over here somewhere. I'm going to put my barrier object onto the room as well. And I'm going to basically get this barrier, and if you hover over, it can do different things. So here I've got the rotate, and it will rotate. Now while you're rotating, you press shift, you'll see it'll click nicely so you can get some nice angles. And now I'm going to move it so that the player's starting off behind a barrier. You'll notice that it's snapping in place. It's sort of, oops, undo. It's sort of, I can't precisely place it. If I want to precisely place it, press this button here and turn snapping off, and now it'll move more smoothly and it'll start showing you sort of alignment things there. So I'm going to move it so that it's starting in the middle of the player. Probably should move the player so the player is starting in the middle of the screen, and then I can move it so it's in the middle of the player and lining up like that. So that I've got a nice alignment happening. Now if I run this game now, so nothing's going to happen with my barrier. So how do I fix that? Well, let's close the game. And it's fairly simple. I'm going to go into the player now. So I'm going to go double click onto the player's code. I'm going to add an event. It's going to be a collision, and it's going to be with the object barrier. So every time that object barrier appears on the stage, this should now work. Let's test that to see if that works. So now the player can't get through the barrier because the player can go off the screen, but the player can't go through the barrier. So obviously an easy way to stop the player from getting off the screen now is to draw a barrier that goes all the way around the edge of the screen, and then the player can't get off it. So you can see there that I've got that. We could then, for example, draw a maze that just fits the player around, and then you could put even more obstacles in there. You can actually add some, say for example, enemies that shoot. So let's actually figure out enemies that shoot now. So if I go back to the room and put the enemy that shoots right here, I should be able to drag it onto the screen, and now if I let it go and drag it, I can get the alignment right. So that's now aligned perfectly in the center. If I run this now, the enemy is going to shoot at me, but it's going straight through the barrier, and you don't want that. You don't want your enemy to shoot you through the barrier. They can shoot at you all they want into the barrier, but let's just actually fix that up now. The best way to fix that up is to go into the object code now and give it a collision with the bullets. The thing you want to do with this collision with the bullets though is destroy the bullets. And the way we do that is if I type in destroy, I'm going to get a whole bunch of code up here, and it's going to be destroy, instance destroy, that's the one. And I'm going to destroy the instance of the other. So the other is the other thing that is interacting with this event, this collision event. So that's going to be the bullet, because the event is for the barrier. The other thing that is colliding with the barrier is the bullet. Let's actually see that and see if it works. So now he's firing at me, but he can't hit me because I'm behind the shield. So you can see that that's instantly a good thing, but as soon as I come out, he's actually shooting at me. So if I want a bit of a rest, I can hide behind the shield. Okay, let's go back to the room again and see if we can figure out how we do this with things like our dog objects, which are ghosts. So I'm going to put my ghost right here, and I'm going to put another one right here, and let's see how this works. So if I press play now, let's see what happens. They're going to go straight through. We don't want that. We don't want our ghosts, even though they are ghosts, and ghosts can go through walls if ghosts are things. Most people would expect a ghost to go through a wall, but we don't really want our enemies going through walls. So we can actually add the collision to the object. So let's go into the object here and just add, once again, a collision object, and we're going to add it to the dog. And I call it a dog because it's dogging you, it's following you like a dog. Okay, so that's the idea there. So let's test that now and see if it works. Okay, that didn't work, so let's actually figure out why. Well, I'm a bit of a goose. I've actually made it thing so that it collides with itself. Let's actually delete that event and add a new event. Add collision object barrier. And now let's test that. Okay, they're now stuck to the edge of the barrier. The gun's shooting at me. Let's see what happens when I move up around here. They start chasing you again. Now what you could do, if you wanted to, is you could figure out how to make them, once they hit the barrier, go, oh, okay, I need to figure out how to get to them, and for them to try something else. You could do as simple as if they hit the barrier, then for 2 seconds they move off in another direction and try again, and that might work. Or you could actually program some artificial intelligence into them. I'm not going to teach you that in this particular course. You're going to need to figure that sort of thing out for yourself. But that is basically a really good way to get a barrier working that impacts with bullets and impacts with your player and it impacts with your enemies.